Would I invest in Costa Rican real estate? Hello, I am Adrienne Green, real estate agent, real estate investor. Love talking about all things real estate. And today we're going to dive into, would I invest in Costa Rican real estate? You know that I'm a big fan of long distance real estate investing, do it myself, help a lot of other people do it. And so would we do Costa Rica? Now, if you love real estate, love all things real estate, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified when we put out more videos. So, getting back to Costa Rica. I visited Costa Rica with my family about a year ago, and the kids asked to go back all the time. Just this weekend, my 4-year-old son, I was like, hey, where do you want to go? He's like, Costa Rica. Can we go to Costa Rica for my birthday? It's a common thing. Now, was it my favorite place ever? No. Was it pretty cool? Yes. Would I like to go back at some point? Of course. So let's dive into if I would invest in Costa Rica. And really, I would say these are questions I would ask for whenever I'm evaluating a market to be in. Most are universal. Some apply solely to looking at foreign or international locales. And we'll go through all of those. And as you know, I'm a big fan of long distance investing. So let's look at what questions we ask as we're evaluating a market, okay? So starting with universal questions I would ask, whether it's foreign, domestic, anywhere, are considering the weather. You know, for an investment property, that is a consideration. In Costa Rica, there's some notable wear and tear from the weather. It has very high humidity levels there, and that can cause a lot of wear and tear on these buildings. I did a quick internet search to compare it to Florida, right? The most humid place within our continental United States. And what I found is that Key West is the most humid place in Florida, and that it averages 74% humidity on an annual basis. Versus what the numbers I could find on Costa Rica is that their big cities average from 74 up to 90% humidity on average. So now, we spent a few days at a pretty nice Marriott resort while we were there, and I was blown away how there was constant maintenance happening. How often we would walk by freshly painted walls and things like that, and yet we still could see degradation from the elements and from the humidity that was happening. It's just a constant battle in places that are that hot and humid of the wear and tear on the buildings there. So wherever I'm looking at buying, I'm considering weather. If that's the heat and humidity of a beach area, if that's snow and cold in a ski area, you know, or anything in between, I'm always considering how the weather would affect my investment in that property in that area. And then the economy. You know, when we're looking at an entirely different country, what do you think of the Costa Rican economy? Is it strong or as resilient as the US economy? You know, especially if you're buying a short-term rental, what do you think of its tourism economy? What do you think of the security of that? And even if you're looking at something within the United States, you know, look at the economy of that local area. You know, are we going to buy in, I mean, just to name some places, do we want to look at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? Do we want to look at like the Panama City Beach area of Florida? What do those economies look like? What is the economies of the people who are going there, who are going to be your target client? What are their economies looking like? And what would it take to affect your ability to make your income there? That's a question that we would ask. And then kind of hand in hand with the economy is the government, you know, and obviously looking at a completely different country's government with Costa Rica. Even within the United States, every state has its own laws that can very much affect investment properties. So we talk about, you know, the clients I work with here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we talk about how for long-term rentals, how landlord friendly Tennessee is and Georgia is, since we're right on the border. And, you know, for short-term rentals, Tennessee actually has a law in the books that if a short-term rental is operating legally and then the laws change, there's a grandfather clause that as long as a short-term rental is operating legally with whatever required permits, etc., that are required at the time it starts operating, it must be allowed to continue to operate. It does not need to then follow the new rules, or it cannot be made illegal by new rules coming on later on, as long as it's continued to operate legally the whole time. So it's just a little example of what we have in Tennessee for short-term rentals. with the government, what do you think of the government and whatever property you would get in a place like Costa Rica? It does rely on that tourism economy. So we might say, well, then, buying a place that tourists would stay in would be pretty safe. But what other considerations do you have there? And then hand in hand with the government is crime. Now, Costa Rica is pretty safe overall. As you may know, if you've ever looked it up, it actually has no military. And so they have a very pacifist culture. Pacifism is actually taught in their schools. And so the rate of violent crimes is very low compared to neighboring countries. That being said, crimes that are not against a person, such as theft or break-ins, are relatively high, crimes of opportunity, you might say. So how does that play into whether or not you're going to get an investment property there, or what kind you get? Do you get one in a gated community? Do you put a gate on yours? How do you value that? We want to consider that crime aspect of government as well. I don't know if that was exactly what I meant, but I guess how police and crime. All right. Now, also, I would say maintenance costs. Those are a constant issue. How easy and what is the cost going to be to get this property maintained, right? Even in the US, we ask that, what's the general cost of labor in an area? Again, coming back to the Chattanooga market, we have a pretty low cost of labor when you're comparing it to maybe places where a lot of our clients invest from, California, Seattle, the Northeast, things like that. We have a much lower cost of labor here because we have a lower cost of living. Now, when we look at a place like Costa Rica, they're importing a lot of the things that you would be using in your short-term rental, for example, or in your investment property, I should say. Does it have to be a short-term rental? Appliances. It can be difficult and costly to get new appliances because they have all of these taxes or tariffs on things that they import as well. And then also, how easy will it be to get someone to be your handyman, to be your maintenance person, to be your cleaner? And will that take extra time to manage that property versus another property due to less efficient systems with getting the contractors and the supplies you need? It's not like there's a Walmart on every corner or in every town in Costa Rica. They don't really have any of those big box stores, and the ones that they do have are fewer and further between. So, how will that affect you, and what can you quantify in terms of your required return that you would need considering that fact? Then financing. We do consider in the US, financing doesn't differ too much state to state. We do want to make sure that whatever lender you're working with is licensed in the state that you want to purchase in. But once we get outside the United States, financing in terms of getting any kind of mortgage loan can be difficult, if not impossible. That means often people are paying cash when they buy properties outside of the United States, and then you're not getting that leverage, that money multiplier of putting 20% down, let's say, and getting the return on the entire amount, right? And so that's a pretty big negative in my mind, because leverage is a huge, huge reason that we invest in real estate. And then ease of access. How easy is it to get to your property if needed? I'm all about long distance real estate investing, and I think it can be very profitable for people. Along with that, access is a consideration. Do you live somewhere where there's easy flights to get to Costa Rica or not? And will you continue to live in that place or in a place with easy access to Costa Rica during the entire time you plan on owning this property? Myself and a lot of our clients, a lot of real estate investors are people whose lives can change very quickly, in a year, 2 years, etc. And where we live might be a part of that. So I would want to have that as a consideration for you as well. Now, one question I'm not asking here, as I would evaluate this Costa Rica real estate, is the personal use question. Sometimes, especially in vacation markets, we're like, oh, how much would we use it ourselves? And I think that while that can be a consideration, it can often skew people from making the best decision. It can bias them with their own personal enjoyment. Suddenly they're envisioning their family at this house every year, and it gets to be a little emotional versus rational. And I would point out that you can make money somewhere else. You can buy somewhere else that makes financial and logistical sense and make a killing there, and then use those funds to fund a vacation in Costa Rica. So as an example of that, we are about to close on our third beach house in Myrtle Beach. Am I going to use all three beach houses in Myrtle Beach? No, I'm going to use one of them. That being said, Myrtle Beach did really well in all of these other indicators for me and all these other analyses. I have a good team in Myrtle Beach. I know the numbers work well there. And so it's to the point of where I can kind of, to somewhat, do a rinse and repeat process there for getting rental set up. And so then I logistically can go to Myrtle Beach once or twice a year, check on all 3 houses, make all my profit from those 3 houses, and then for my other vacations, go wherever I want in the world and not be limited to any one place. So that was an example of why that personal use question can sometimes skew us and get us off from being logical and what another alternative could be to valuing that personal use. So for myself, while I enjoyed our trip to Costa Rica and I would like to go back at some point, I would not invest in Costa Rica real estate right now. As you heard, instead I'm buying another house in Myrtle Beach, which is a great investment. I buy a lot of properties here locally in the Chattanooga area, and there's tons of markets. And just for me, and that's why I would just say with real estate investing overall that we can have these hard and fast measures or metrics, and yet it's very personal because how it applies to every person is different. And so, anyway, I would not be investing in Costa Rica real estate right now. I will note that I was hesitant to even make this video because I'm like, what's going to happen? I'm going to say I wouldn't buy in Costa Rica and then watch in a year or two. I'm going to end up, for some reason, my answers to these questions will change. My analysis or my factors will change, and suddenly I'll end up with a house down there or something like that. But that is not on the plans right now because these questions led me to believe that there are better places for me to invest right now. So if on your list, Chattanooga is one of the places that you'd love to invest. I help people invest there all the time. Reach out. My contact information is below. And remember, if you just want to hear all this kind of cool stuff about real estate investing on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Adrienne Green here. Thank you so much.